in the beginning, there was potential. We know that we're living in a fast-moving society, a time in history when change is big, maybe like the shift of industrialisation. It's obvious that things change. We don't live how they did in the Iron Age. We don't live how the first settlers in our part of Yorkshire lived, but from what we know of life then and life now, we know that things change. The invention of the printing press, of the train, of the Humber Bridge, all these things revolutionised life at that point. We know that church is just what many people need, but we also realise that swathes of people are looking for a spirituality and community that they don't find expressed in church. We only need to look at the makeup, the demography of our church, to know that we aren't reaching everybody. People have voted with their feet. They've gone elsewhere, or they don't come at all. Many of us have a sense that we're at a point of change, a godly Kairos moment, and we're being called into the new and the unknown, to explore what the way of Jesus might look like in 2020 and beyond, exploring what life responding to the love of a just, creative and redemptive God might look like. Henry Ford always complained that when he asked people what they wanted, they said faster horses. It wasn't until he made his first car that people really started to grasp his vision. When we started the Pioneer Nursery, it was a bit like darkness at creation. We knew something was coming, but we couldn't yet see how it would play out. The temptation is to model the new on what we already know. Space appeared, separating water above and below. A time of settling. Space to recognise what could be. Potential. Leslie had a vision that drew on organic imagery of a community of people flourishing. We shared in October at Flourish in Scarborough. From the darkness and chaos, we began to see how the natural might teach us how to grow and be. We shared with you the metaphor of potting shed, to nurture and grow the seeds God's Spirit is planting, and of church as an allotment with diverse gardeners, each using different ways, different techniques, different traditions. These pictures helped shape our thoughts, embracing that diversity. As the District Nursery offered a place to look where seeds were flourishing, where they were sprouting, looking for signs of the things that God was doing within and without the Methodist Church in our area.
We launched, as we said, the potting shed in September of last year, and we came and shared with you just a little bit of our image at Flourish, and there's a little bit of a write-up in the Connection magazine.
And so gradual separation between earth and sea. A rhythm emerged. The earth produces vegetation. The seeds of new people doing new things began to show themselves.
We discovered wonderful people already engaged in wonderful, edgy mission. We're still discovering some of those people, but here's a map of the people we've discovered. You can find some of the things they've been involved in on our Potting Shed website, methodistpioneers.net. We began meeting regularly as groups. We shared stories, we visited one another's churches and mission contexts, and we encouraged one another and reached one another in our individual ministries. We learned a great deal from one another, and new ideas that we've shared have become concrete realities, have become changes to mission in many different churches.
As we met with people within the church, on its periphery, and well outside it, we began to see real spiritual needs and desires. The hopes that individuals have for being part of a community that is supportive, empowering, and deeply spiritually nourishing is part of regular conversation. And so the idea of networking individuals who are full of ideas and not yet quite able to bring them to fruition became part of our conversation. A possibility for new gatherings, bringing like-minded people together was discussed. New ways of being church, new ways of doing mission. day and night. Reality. Then, of course, just as we were gaining momentum, lockdown kicked in. We experienced the good and the bad of it. Rest, time in the dark, and time in the light. Many of the seeds we'd sown burst into life. There were some that had been planted outside of the church building, some using new technologies like Zoom, using video or live stream. Groups who knew and networked well with their communities could respond quickly to local need, and some of these things came suddenly into fruition. Many people in traditional churches adapted, others stopped and reflected. The priorities in what the new growth looked like was what we'd detected: the need for community, connection in new ways, and social action.
Some of us were already dabbling in the digital world pre-COVID. I was being mentored by somebody in the States. We were already kind of meeting with some of the connectional team online. And so for many pioneering people, this time has been a time of liberation rather than limitation. The digital world has opened up a means to express ourselves and share ourselves in new ways in a myriad of different worship forms. Just within my circuit, there's several different ways that we're offering digital worship, reflection, meeting together. And it's also opened up new ways of doing pastoral care. As pioneers in Yorkshire, we've connected in with a wider body of pioneers across the UK through connectional webinars, and it's been exciting to find like-minded people across the UK and to share ideas with them and to discern the way things are progressing and what opportunities lie before us. And so, in doing so, our vision has expanded too.
Waters swarming with life, the air filled with soaring birds, life expressing itself. The new life that we've been involved in, both pre and during COVID lockdown, includes divine focus, a gathering of artists to reflect on the world. We've had conversations about green church, eco-church, and it's wonderful to see that Summerbridge Church in Kairos Circuit have been awarded a Russia Award, and some of those passionate individuals are keen to help us change. And we feel we need to take seriously the climate disaster that we are heading into. We began a nomad discussion group, listening to a podcast that wrestles with some of the theological big questions, and then gathering to reflect together on what we've heard. We've begun to see different grassroots communities forming and bring with that a new rhythm of life, similar to Roger Walton's Methodist way of life, but perhaps in a way that's a bit less churchy. The new is beginning to express itself.
We've actually broken so many barriers in the last few months. We've, in my churches, we've had housebound people reconnected. We've had parents who've been struggling to be part of a Bible study group, a home group. Suddenly through Zoom, the limits of childcare have fallen away. They've been able to meet together and formed a large group. We've had distant friends worshipping with us at the click of the mouse. We've had artists, preachers, musicians sharing their gifts, not just with us, not just their local church, but with the circuit and the world. And we're building a body of material that we can share with one another and augment our worship. All of us have discovered the value of community, but also that community doesn't need to be constrained by geography. And many of us have felt the burden of buildings and the treadmill patterns of meetings lifted. And in the wake of these revelations, I think, a new way of being church is beginning to form in many of our minds.
Domesticated animals, small creeping animals and wild animals were all next to emerge. For there to be life and healthy growth, there has to be space. Like a plant that's been in a pot too long, some expressions of faith struggle to really flourish in the church as it is. We have the opportunity now to shake out the roots and to place them in new soil. As we look at all this potential, we don't just want to freshen the plant and place it into the existing pot. So we're suggesting a new container, new soil, and more space to grow and develop. What we're suggesting isn't about replacing anything, but coming alongside you in your churches and your circuits and in your projects, to come alongside in a community of supportive peers, to share resources and to help bring new shoots to growth. We're still seeking to bless the world with love, but maybe exploring how we might follow Jesus into new ways of doing that.
We want to draw on the treasures and traditions of the Methodist Church, of which we love, and the renewed interest in a way of life, but particularly to develop this playground, this place where we're open to risk, a place of discipleship and a place where mission can be born. And so we're proposing a new structure alongside our existing structures. We're proposing a group of trustees that will form a new Yorkshire-wide circuit within the district. We've called it Kairos Circuit or Circuit 16. It will have a leadership passionate to create this new environment which will nurture individuals at its heart. A structure is low on meetings and formality, rich in relationship and empowerment.
We plan for a new network of grassroots discipleship groups that have the vibrancy of Methodist bands and classes, but revamped for 2020 around a way of life that's accessible to those inside the church and outside. A place where we can belong, a place where we can journey through life in spiritually nourishing community, discovering our gifts and our unique place in the world together, and being part of the change that the world needs to see. A place where faith is part of our daily life. We're drawing together resources on a new website, the Grassroots website, and we want to make those resources available to you, whether you're part of the new structure or not, so the groups that form can be tailored to you and by you.
And instead of churches and buildings, we will be looking to form Kairos communities where we draw together those who have the thread of a shared calling. We want to create focused missional teams, missional projects around a particular issue, a particular passion or a particular need. These groups will draw on both the possibilities of physical relationships, but also primarily digital relationships. This combination of grassroots communities and Kairos communities, they could be entirely church for you, but they could also be a means of engaging in your present discipleship alongside your church, that they can expand your current church life and mission and belonging.
As we take these creative steps guided by the Spirit, we seek your prayers.
We've shared some of our ideas in a lot more detail with the connectional team, who are encouraged and excited by the ideas and the progress we've made. They're keen to support us in developing this new work with them.
And of course, we'll need to take our Sabbaths to reflect and to discern and to review that this thing we're talking about creating. We know we're experimenting, just as many of you are, and we hope that you will continue to be part of this creative emerging, both in supporting what we're doing and giving us space to explore and play. What we all hope is, like our Creator God, that we might sit down in months to come and review what we've done and say, that was good.